Okay, welcome out to today's round of Momentum Mindset Monday. And we're gonna have some fun today. We're gonna talk a little bit about listings and how to prepare yourself to have better engagement and more connection with potential sellers and with sellers that you're currently working with. So it should be hopefully it'll take away a couple things out of our discussion today. So we'll kind of step into this and get going from there. Okay, here we go. So first thing is listing success. This market that we're in right now is an amazing time to be able to create value for people who are looking at selling their homes. Now, the last several years, you have sellers who have had a lot of confidence that they get to sell a house on their own. Like they heard it on the news, they saw it in their friends and their people in their neighborhood that they put homes on the market and homes are selling really, really fast. Now, as the market shifts and adjusts a little bit, that confidence starts to wane and people start to wonder if this is the right market to be able to do that in. And what you need to understand on the real estate side for us, and we'll talk a little bit about this in future meetings, is that the supply and demand is still in your favor right now. So there's still a good amount of demand, but right now the supply is really, really low. And so what you'll find is that with that being really low, it opens up a lot of opportunities for you as far as being able to connect with people and help them when they're looking at selling their home. So again, a lot of cool opportunities. And so the question I would ask you first as we step into this idea of listing more homes and helping people with the selling process is, what is a listing appointment? Now you'll go to different classes, you'll go to different presentations, and they'll talk about a listing presentation. You'll typically see this, whether it's a PowerPoint presentation or you'll see some sort of booklet of information that you're trying to sell somebody on this process of selling their home. But I would say the key on having a really powerful listing appointment is actually not in the presentation of things. It's actually in the concept that it's all in the diagnosis. So you've got to start to look at these meetings that you have with clientele as an opportunity to find out what their needs are. And this is your chance to dig deep, to ask insightful questions and to really find out what are the motivations that are driving the decision of looking at buying or selling a home. Now, in this scenario, the thing to keep in mind with most sellers, they don't see themselves as sellers first. They see themselves as buyers first. That's how they think of themselves, because the selling part of it is not fun. Like, nobody's excited about having a bunch of people tromp through their house and a bunch of strangers critique their home and then have to prep their home and live in this model home type scenario where it's just not as comfortable. Nobody's excited about the selling process of it, but what the people get excited about is the idea of buying something. So the thing to keep in mind is that oftentimes you'll have agents who say, well, I want to focus on getting more sellers. Well, the secret of getting more sellers, you just got to find buyers, because buyers lead to sellers too. If you have $1 million buyer, that's likely a $500,000 or $600,000 home seller. They just see themselves as a $1 million buyer because that's the exciting thing, to go look at $1 million homes. And then the part of that process is going to be potentially looking at selling their $600,000 home to get into the $1 million home. So again, the thought is you're looking at this appointment as a diagnosis and you're stepping into that. Now, here's some thoughts that come into play when you look at this initial diagnosis, when you're looking at meeting with someone and talking about selling their home. A couple of things. Number one, are you building rapport? You've got to build some sort of connection and some rapport. You're stepping into someone's home, you're meeting with them, and you're going to find some sort of ways of connecting with them, finding things that you can build off of with some commonality. Be able to show yourself as a real person and be able to connect with them. Secondly, it's all about asking insightful questions. Insightful questions are not just a bunch of yes/no questions. It's actually getting people to talk. And people will be more willing to talk if they feel comfortable with you. So you've got to be, and the key with building rapport is you've got to be a little bit vulnerable. Like, you've got to be able to share a little bit about yourself. You got to be able to talk about that and be able to share. Now, I would say you don't want to be oversharing in the sense that you're the one talking the whole time. You're just laying some foundation, some groundwork, and that's where you start to build some commonality. And then you ask them insightful questions. You're asking them what their ideal situation is. You're asking them if they're to have their ideal real estate agent, what would that look like for them? If they had the ideal process and how it all played out, what will that look like for them? And you're just trying to get a better idea of what they're picturing on their end. Now, the other part of this process is helping them weigh the alternatives. And there's nothing wrong with stepping into that and being able to go over all the alternatives. So I had a couple listing appointments over the weekend. In fact, I decided that for me to talk a little bit about listings, it would be worth going out and getting a couple listings. So I had an opportunity to go to a couple homes over the weekend and meet with some people and to get some different listings lined up. When I went to one of the houses over the weekend, the person who referred me told me that these people are going to want to sell their home first on their own. And she said, they're probably not going to want to meet with you. I said, well, it's worth meeting with me because I'll be able to help them know if they're going to price their home right. And they don't have to work with me. I don't even care if they work with me. And in the end, I would hate for them to underprice their home. So I ended up getting a connection and going in and meeting with them over the weekend and talking with them. And in that conversation, like I knew in the back of my mind, I thought, well, these guys are probably going to try to sell it on their own. And so I wanted to bring that up as a potential alternative. And so I said, hey, so we're talking a little bit about the pricing of your house. Pricing will kind of depend on which avenue you go down to sell your home. So you have multiple avenues that you can sell your home. Number one, you can sell on your own. And me bringing that up is not like some sort of secret thing they haven't thought of on their own. In fact, me bringing that up just shows that I'm okay with the idea of talking about it. So there's nothing wrong with talking about all their alternatives, because what are the alternatives for a seller? The option one, they can sell on their own. Option two, they can sell it with some sort of discount model and some sort of like low price thing to throw it on the MLS. They could look at hiring with some other random agent, or they could look at hiring me. Or they could look at not even selling, right? Or they maybe even look at renting. Those are all the different things that are in front of them, and I'm okay talking about any of those. And we want to outline a path. I want to find out from them which of those seems appealing, and we can talk about the pros and cons. And so the discussion on Saturday when I met with this couple, I said, hey, these are all options that you have on the table for you. You could look at selling it on your own. You could look at finding some sort of model where you can just throw it on the MLS for a couple $100. You could find some other random agent out there, or you could look at working with me. Those are all viable options. And the question then comes down to which is the best for you in this process. Now, the pros and cons, I can talk about any of those with people in that experience. And it's easier for me to kind of resolve different issues as I'm talking to them. And so me being so obtuse that I'm not going to bring those conversations up doesn't make it so they don't think about those things. I just want to be super clear. I just want to be able to have a conversation in front of them about all the different options that they have and be able to outline out the pros and cons. I said, listen, any of those are viable. I know people who have done every single one of those things. And some of the times it's worked out really well. Other times it hasn't. So there's pros and cons with all of those. It's just a matter of discussing all those different things. And we went down the list of all the different things. And if you want, we can talk about some of the pros and cons of these different things, just so you have a little bit greater awareness of what to watch out for. And at the same time, making sure it's going to be the right fit for you. So again, a higher level conversation that we're able to step into conversations that might be a little bit uncomfortable for other people to have. And then the last part, and this is a critical part of the process, is the follow-up. Now the follow-up, we're going to talk a little bit about the follow-up, but that is what is the game changer for many people in this process. And what I have found, the secret to listing homes is having people take small, relevant steps along the pathway that you're guiding them on. It's me giving small assignments and leading the process and having them take those small steps along the way. What I don't do is I don't show up with a bunch of listing paperwork and have them sign it that second. Now I could, typically I might have the paperwork, but I don't ever have it even with me. It's out in my car or out in my truck outside. It's available if I need to go get it, but I didn't come in with the agenda that I'm going to try to force this on them right now. It's all just small, relevant steps along the way. So again, I'm outlining a path. I'm guiding them out what the next steps are that are relevant, and then we're going to be following up with them. And the follow-up are just small little increments along the way. So here we go. We'll talk a little bit about this. So here are the two biggest mistakes that I see people make when they start to look at listing more and more homes, and they say, okay, I want to list some houses this week or this month. If they're trying to grow their listing base, here are the two biggest mistakes I see people make. Number one of the biggest mistakes is they're helping them down a path to their best interest. And when I mean there, this is kind of confusing, but what I'm saying is we are helping people, like sometimes when we're helping them down a path, that's in our best interest. And that's where it gets all out of whack. So we might meet with a seller and it's in our best interest that they sell the home, but it might not be in their best interest. And so the minute that we're in misalignment, it's going to mess up the whole process because we're just out of integrity in this. And so the process that you've got to go through and the ability to be able to take a step back and look at it as a consultant to give people good advice will always lead to your greatest benefit. So hear me out on this. A couple of weeks ago, I got a referral. I got a referral from someone I met 3 years ago. So I had an online lead that I got from some people who were looking at selling their home way down in Nephi. And I remember went out there, it was late at night. Because I remember getting to this house, it was dark. And I met these people and their home was just in total disarray. They're in the middle of construction. They had all these projects and they're thinking about maybe selling their home. And my advice to them at the time was it would make no sense to sell their home in the current state it was in. They had to finish what they were doing. They had torn out all these walls. The house is in rough shape. It was just, he's like, well, I'm just getting overwhelmed by all the work. I said, listen, can you finish it? He's like, yeah, I can finish it. It's going to take me some time. I said, yeah, it's going to be in your best interest to finish it. Because you selling it in this current state, you're going to have people coming in with really discounted offers. You can sell it, but not for the price that you want. Like no one's going to see the same vision that you see with this home. And my advice to him was to not sell it then, but to get the house ready to go. Now, these people called me this summer, and this last year, they looked at maybe selling, and then we ended up having an appointment set. Then they canceled and said, no, we're going to wait till the next summer, but we'll be back in touch with you. I said, great, that'd be fine. Whenever you guys are ready, I'll still be in business. Fast forward to about a month ago, I get a phone call from somebody else. Their daughter is getting divorced, and they had referred me to their daughter who was selling a home. Their daughter's home was like $1 million home. And I went and met with the daughter, and she was super cool, and we have a good conversation. They own the house free and clear. The way that her divorce is going to lay out, like there's a couple of things that we talked about, like whether she needed to sell or could she do something else? Like could she actually position some of the equity to actually buy some rental properties and do some other things with that? And so when we left that meeting, the understanding was that she was not going to sell because it seemed like it'd be better interest for her to buy some rental properties and kind of position herself for an early retirement for what she was trying to accomplish. But in the end, like this last week, she called him and said, you know what, I thought about it. I do want to sell. Like I appreciate all the different advice and ideas, but I am committed to selling. I want to sell. And now she is like ready to go. Now we're moving forward in this process. And the whole process was built around me trying to find out what was in their best interest. And then business is always going to come back from that. And that's a hard thing when you're needing business, you're wanting business, but to look at this like as a true fiduciary to find someone how to help them. The second big mistake I see people make is baby steps. Too often, we try to have people take too big of steps in the process, and we try to move the needle too far in the process. It's all about little steps. It's like little incremental steps that leads people to the process. So if someone's listing their home, the first step is you might go and meet with them. You might give them some different ideas that they could do to prep their home. Then you might go back out to see how the process is moving along. Then you're going to tell them, like, hey, the next step in this process is we got to schedule for photography. Let's get the photography side up. And then also, once we get the photos done, we're ready to go on live. So we want to go over the paperwork at this point. Like, they're just small little steps that don't become this huge process. And they're just little steps. And I describe them as little steps because that way they don't become overwhelmed in the process. The secret is in the follow-up and you leading the journey. So what happens oftentimes is we go and meet with someone and we're like, okay, well, they're gonna call me if they want me to work with them, or I'll just have to wait back and see. I just don't wait. My assumption is that they want to work with me. My assumption is always that we're probably going to end up working together. That's just the assumption going into it. I just assume that's how it's going to work. They wouldn't have called me in the first place to come to their home and meet with them if they didn't want to be in the process. Now, at some point down the road, if they decide not to work with me, they'll have to tell me that. But my assumption is that we're just going to start to work together. And I just move the process down with the assumption that we're going to be working together along the way. And I say, here's the next relevant step. Here's the next step. Here's the next step. Here's the next step. Now, if they want to pull the plug on that and go a different direction, that's on them. And I'm okay with that. I'm just guiding them on the next step. So again, the process of listing homes is just small little steps. And we'll talk a little bit more tomorrow on a future video about more of the interactions of what this dance looks like. Because it's a dance. Like they're taking a step and you're taking a step. You're taking a step, they're taking a step. It's just going back and forth. It's like this seesaw approach, right? Like you're just going slowly going back and forth, and you're just taking, and you're able to go at whatever speed that they're at instead of you being too aggressive from the get-go.